has shaped me to this point. I am the director of the international mission team of British and Foreign Bible Society. British and Foreign Bible Society is a Bible society part of a global fellowship of many Bible societies around the world. There are around 148 Bible societies who come together in this Bible movement to translate the Bible, to distribute the Bible, to engage the audiences with the Bible, to increase understanding and knowledge around the Bible, but also to promote about the place of the Bible, to advocate for the place of the Bible in public sphere. I have the privilege working with a group of my colleagues who are in this call. Dr. Joshua, who you have already known, and you are very close friend with, some of you are close friend with him. He has joined Bible Society or British and Foreign Bible Society since September to lead a particular work that we do as a British and Foreign Bible Society under the umbrella of International Bible Advocacy Center. And my two other colleagues and close friends are Christian and Germa. I will invite them briefly to introduce themselves, and then I would love to then frame the conversation why we are so pleased and keen to hear from you and your insights in how we can shape together some of our understanding of some of the missiological context in which we want to run a global research. So may I invite Germa, Christian, and Joshua to give a very brief introduction about yourselves, and then I will wrap up the context in which we are going to have the conversation for today. So let's start with Joshua. Joshua, over to you, and then go to Germa and Christian.
Yep, I think I'm Joshua. Many of you know me already as a colleague or as friend, and I have just joined in Bible Society as an head of the International Bible Advocacy Center, and yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Joshua. Germa, over to you.
My name is Germa Mohammed. I have been working for the International Bible Advocacy Center for the past 7 years now. At the moment, driving this vision together with my colleagues, Aldi, Joshua, and Christian. Thank you.
And my name is Christian. I worked with the Bible Society for the last 13 years. My title is Senior Bible Advocate, and I work together with Joshua and Germa with something called IBAC, which is the International Bible Advocacy Center. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, all of you. Now, the reason why we are so excited to engage with you all today is that British and Foreign Bible Society is at the early stages of exploring a global research that will help us to understand people's attitude towards the Bible. Now, we work very closely with a number of local Bible societies who have built this understanding and insight in part of the work that they do. And we want to empower them and support them to increase the insight of how their audience, their particular audience, understands the Bible. What do they think about the Bible? What obstacles do they have about the Bible? And in order to construct and design this particular research, we are very much aware that actually in order to get the best information and insight, we need to understand the context very, very carefully. Different contexts around the world will have different cultural understanding, will have different way of expressing positive feelings, also negative feelings. They may have different religious contexts that may complicate the way that people perceive the Bible. It may increase complexity in how they understand the Bible, but also how they see the role of the Bible in their day-to-day life. And in order for us to understand this particular context, we are wanting to engage different Bible societies around the world, but in addition to that, engage many theologians, people like you who live in this particular context, who have experience in engaging with church leaders, who have experience who is engaging with your own culture, and bringing all that insight for us to really understand what are some of the typical missiological clusters or contexts in which we need to design particular way of expressing the global research. Now, we have done some work internally trying to understand these regions at a very high level. We have come with some hypotheses that my colleague Germa will expand, but I just wanted to frame that this is our very early thinking, and we would love to hear you more in terms of whether there are more nuances, whether there is more better understanding of some of these particular clusters so that we can reflect and shape those in our design process. That is the overall context, and I would love that, as Joshua said right at the beginning, for this to be a very much informal conversation where we bounce ideas, where we kind of explore it together. You may have your own experience that you think it would be appropriate for us to incorporate and factor in our thinking. So hopefully this will be a conversation that in a later stage we can start crystallizing in a more formal process of engaging with the global research. So with that context, I'm going to invite Germa, who is going to give us a bit more detail of our thinking at this stage, how we are understanding some of the missiological context at a global level, who will then help us to engage particular audiences in understanding their posture towards the Bible. So, Germa, over to you.
Thank you, Aldi. I just would like to thank you, all of you, for coming together to share this time with us and to share this idea with us. I'm wondering if you can see the slide that I'm about to share.
Okay, maybe you can increase the size. Oh, good.
Okay. Yes. This meeting, as my colleague already captured it, has to do with understanding global missiological landscape in which we are operating. Just to give you a little bit of a background, the Bible Society exists to give the Bible to the world. That is our main mission. This mission is made possible, as you can see from that diagram, by making the Bible available through translation and production, and making the Bible accessible through distribution and promoting literacy where people cannot read or write. Also, we have been engaged for the past decade, making Bible credible through engagement and advocacy. In fact, the center that we sit in, International Bible Advocacy Center, has to do with this bit of task of the Bible mission. So let's go on to exploring some of the rationales of this research. The question now is, why this research? What is the main purpose? We do our mission in the middle of constant tension between change and continuity in our world. To explain a little bit, we live in a world that is constantly changing as a result of technological advancement, political shift, economic development, and vice versa. But also in the meantime, we have the word, that is the Bible, which we believe has timeless values to offer to the world that we live in. Therefore, as a Bible mission organization, we cannot take our mission audience for granted. We have to make constant effort to understand our mission landscape, to understand our audience, what their aspirations are, what their fears are, what their hopes are in relation to the Bible. So the goal of this research really has to do, one, profiling our global audience with regards to their relationship with the Bible. And the second goal is understanding the challenge and opportunity embedded within the changing culture that we live in. When the culture changes, on the one hand, it brings a challenge for us to meet, and on the other hand, there could be some opportunities in that changing situation that we can set our feet in and then tell our Christian story and promote the Bible and the value that it has. And the third goal is identifying overlapping missiological issues across culture. I'm going to talk in a minute about different cultural clusters that we built based on our own assumption and some literature review, and try to understand if there are overlapping missiological opportunities, overlapping missiological challenges in different clusters globally. Now, coming to the methodological issues of this research takes a largely sociological approach, which includes quantitative and qualitative way of looking into these cultural changes and continuity. And one of the approach within this sociological approach is having some archaeologist's view. What I mean by that is we would like the quantitative and qualitative aspect of this research to go into significant detail and granularity. This aspect of our research will be, of course, undertaken by a large research company. The aim of looking to this segment of our global audience from more detailed orientation has to do with understanding those overlapping areas and differences. But the second approach within that sociological research methodology is taking an approach of an explorer's or a scout's view. This is where we would like you to get involved. We have made segmentation of global audience based on our experience and some generic review of existing literature. But this view has to do with testing the attributes of the segment that we are about to provide you in a moment. So we will be hopefully sending you like a scout. And I was having, when I work on this slide, the typology of Joshua and Caleb when they went to Canaan for scouting, and we hope that we will come up with some fruitful and uplifting information later on. So this is how we try to map out our audience globally. When it comes to the North America, we branded that segment as influential and at the same time declining. So for each segment, we would like to see opportunity and we would like to see challenge. So being influential here is an opportunity that we can tap into, but declining is a kind of a challenge that we would like to tackle. This segment of audience is influential because it has a strong narrative power. It has deep resources, which includes money, media, scholarship, and politics. It has got a huge narrative, financial, and academic power in this, embedded in this cultural cluster. Its influence is especially visible when it comes to the contemporary churches in Latin America and in Africa, because the so-called churches that are led by prophets and the major ones and apostles and TV evangelists, or in the other parts of the world, tend to mimic what is happening in the US, especially with the evangelical constituency. Even though it has got some triumphant posture, it is declining because of internal ethical issues, but also secularist challenge and headwind that it has been facing in the past few decades. The other, the audience segment is, you could say, the Latin American segment. Here we said it is aging, getting old, and that is a challenge, but also it is a segment that is intentional about adapting to a new situation. Christian influence is waning in this audience segment because of, again, secularism and political pressure. However, the church has learned to find a place to tell its story, for example, within the Marxist system, but also in secularist thinking structure or culture. The rise of contemporary churches, renewal movement within the Catholic Church shows that this culture is open to accommodate modernity, technology, and politics and faith. Strong activism, especially to advance the cause of the poor, shows that their willingness to learn theology and the biblical message within social and cultural sensibility. The other part is the so-called Western part. And the Western part, we called it exiled and indifferent. Now, here, exiled means when you go to exile, that's a typology, you always live with the hope that someday you will come back, and you will live with that nostalgia that always drives you to go back to the time, the glorious time or glorious past. The aspect of indifference is also a challenge that we need to meet. Christianity in this part is embedded in the culture, embedded in language, and embedded in way of life, even when it is not openly recognized. However, the people either lack confidence to embrace that Christian past or are not aware of that past. So there is an element of ignorance when it comes to the Bible and its influence, its contribution to the culture and way of life. And or there is this lack of confidence somehow, sometimes because of the historic baggage of church's relationship with empire, with colonial project, and so on and so forth. Christian heritage is now at this time evoked when they feel under threat from religious and cultural newcomers, from migration, from extremism. Always then at this time, the Christian heritage is evoked. This shows that the dormant influence can be awakened, but positive trigger point needs to be found in order to kind of make possible that return from exile possible. The red bit is what we called as hot and hostile. It is the Islamic part of our culture. It goes against across countries, even across continent, when it comes to hot and hostile part. This is when we say hot, there is this sense of religiosity that you can tap into. For example, in an Islamic area, if you initiate a conversation about secularism, then they can easily come at home because they feel also that threat, and that is an opportunity for us. Hostile in a sense that they are hostile to Christianity. They might be also hostility to the Bible. This audience segment is politically volatile. It is both religiously and politically conservative, which makes it hot. However, the hotness can be advantaged by maintaining that common value of religiosity. Nevertheless, the tendency of associating Christianity with the Western ideology would be a challenge in terms of dealing with the Christians, and as well as Muslims also promoting the message of the Bible. And the other part, the Asian part, I mean, I just would like to make you aware, this is just based on hypothesis, it's not based on concrete scientific kind of findings. So I just want you to bear that in mind. We call this part, the yellow part, disciplined and defensive. Disciplined in a sense that they are aware of their cultural upbringing. They are aware of promoting their culture and the values that they think are embedded in their culture. In fact, there is this tendency of defending their culture and their values from the foreign influx of other values. This audience have a strong cultural self-awareness. Their value system are clearly delineated and even programmatized at the policy level. This cultural self-awareness means that the audience is defensive to foreign cultural element. Even Christian message needs to be carefully contextualized, so it is enveloped in their cultural languages. The last part is the sub-Saharan African part, and we branded this as inviting and untamed. Inviting in a sense that it is an area where Christianity is growing in a great numbers. But untamed, there is an element of chaos, lack of education there, lack of discipline and discipleship. Predicted to be the main global hub of Christianity by the half of this century, this part. The church is young in a young continent. However, the ecclesiastical space is increasingly chaotic and untamed because of lack of equipped leaders within the church. Christianity faces a huge infiltration of traditional religious elements, but also poverty and deprivation makes the church susceptible to be hijacked by powerful personalities who promise prosperity and healing. So what was the thinking process? I will finish here. What was the thinking process behind this clustering? One is Bible culture integrality. What do I mean by that? In these areas, there are areas in which Christianity is an integral part of culture, as I said, either in the past or in a current situation and in present. This means that the culture has been saturated, their culture has been saturated by the biblical values in the past, or it is still somehow open to the Bible. Because of the overlap between culture and Christianity, it would be more reasonable to profile the audience in relation to the attributes of Christianity. So falling in this category is, as you say, are influential and declining, aging and adapting, and exiled and indifferent. And the next thinking process is the Bible, the culture Bible opposition, where the culture stands in opposition to the Bible or the biblical values or message. There are areas in which culture stands in direct opposition to the Bible. In this segment, the center of culture is held or occupied by religious and ideological categories, which are antithetical to Christianity or to the biblical message. Here, Christians rely either on finding subversive means to tell their stories, or they have to find a hermeneutic space in which the incumbent within the incumbent culture to tell their Christian story. In order to assist our colleagues operating in this culture, it looks more fruitful to focus more on the culture than the attribute of Christianity. Hence, the audience segment in this category are designated as hot and hostile and disciplined and defensive. And then the last thinking process was the culture Bible gap, which means there is a gap between Bible and the culture, and they are compartmentalized. They don't meet each other. They live in their own. They can be evoked in different times depending on the need. They deputize in the culture to each other, Bible and culture. This is the area in which different religious and ideological elements like traditional religiosity, tribalism, and modernity and Christianity simultaneously operate at the center of the culture. While this audience segment is open for the Bible, there is a huge interpretive gap which contributes to unhelpful compartmentalization of life and even chaos in both the church and the wider society. This is because biblical values in the Christian faith are not articulated in such a way that it brings coherence to, for example, material and spiritual and public and private life. An audience segment falling in this category is inviting an anthem ban. Let me stop there and then leave the stage for Joshua or Oldie to take us to the next stage. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. I think thank you, Oldie, and thank you, Germa, for doing that. And I think we would like to open up this session for questions. And if you like to raise your question, it would be good to type in the chat. And I like Dr. Musa to raise the question, Professor Musa, to raise the first question. Is it possible to put a focus group together in each region to validate this hypothesis? Yeah, I think we want to be open to the methodologies and methods. Professor Musa, yeah, raise this.
Yes, first, shalom to all and congratulations, my brother Girma, for a wonderful insight. I really liked the way you looked at things. And again, since this is a serious work and we're setting a foundation, I think it might be a good idea, and this can be done quickly, to identify key leaders in each region and put together a focus group. This can be done to validate. This is what we perceive. This is what we see. Is that right? Is that true? Does it really resonate with you? If that is validated, we are into a very big dynamic of change. Because once we identify what's really happening, our strategy will really bear fruits. So that's my thinking. And again, thank you so much.
Yep. Any response from my colleagues, or we will have next question?
Dr. I just want to respond very quickly to the comment that Dr. Musa brought to us. I definitely welcome that suggestion. Our desire and hope as British and Foreign Bible Society would be to work very closely with a number of local Bible societies from these particular regions who will, again, as you rightly said, challenge, validate, enlarge our understanding whether this particular way of clustering missiological context would be appropriate. And I think within those conversations, it would be important to incorporate also theologians, church leaders, thought leaders from those particular clusters who are able to bring the same level of analysis. Because as you rightly said, the moment we are in a position to define a missiological cluster and articulate what are the characteristics of that particular clusters, the opportunities and the challenges, then we are in a stronger position to articulate a kind of a missiological strategy of how do we engage these audiences with the Bible. And that is the goal in some ways at the end of this process. So thank you very much, Dr. Musa, for what you highlighted, and we will definitely welcome that.
Right. Thank you, Oldie. And I think Shakespeare from South Korea like to ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Grima, for your presentations. I was wondering whether the attitude towards the Bible in the different geographical areas, is it not also changing along with time? Europe, and then slowly the Middle East that was once totally closed. And there's something opening up now slowly. With the number of Bibles being downloaded. I mean, we are just talking about the physical copies, but also with the coming in of internet. And I think we should also take that into account. The number of Bibles that's being downloaded every day in Arabic in these areas. I think that's something that could be included.
Interesting. I think Chama would add from South Korea again. Chama, would you like to show yourself in the video and ask the question? Yeah, Chama.
Thank you so much for this very rich and interesting presentation. I appreciate so much to listen to something so wonderful this time. I am Chama Kaunda. I'm originally from Zambia, and now I'm teaching at Yonsei University. I want to follow up also with the question that Shakespeare has raised as well, especially on this dimension that you've raised, looking at the different way that different contexts are engaging the Bible in terms of Bible culture engagement. Recently, I've been reading around, especially my area of research is much on African Christianity. So I've been trying to look at how African scholars, especially African theologians, have looked at almost this kind of interaction over a period of time for the past over 50 years. And I was looking at people like John Mbiti, Lamini Sane, and many of these who have interacted with the Bible. And I think the question of the Bible, especially in African Christianity, has been very, very important among scholars. And there has been a very, very rich interaction in terms of understanding how the Bible is conceived. And the understanding of the Bible in African Christianity is not the same among different churches. So there are so many paradigms in terms of interaction with the Bible. So the last part, which is coming, inviting and taming, I think it seems like it's so unitary in terms of understanding how African cultures and African Christianity has been interacting with the Bible. What I feel specifically is that if we go with a very clear-cut understanding of culture, like if we go to Niba's 5 cultural engagement, or if we take these 3 paradigms that you have brought, the integrality, opposition, and gap, as the models for understanding these different content, I think we'll limit ourselves. That's the way I feel, because the situation on the ground is very fluid and dynamic, and people tend to interact with the Bible in quite different ways. And what we can think as a gap, we may find that it's not necessarily a gap at all. It's already closed. And what we may think, so what I feel, I think maybe if we want to fully understand and appreciate the richness of how people interact with the Bible, we need to go with an open mind and allow much more interaction. For instance, if you have been teaching African Christianity this semester, which we are just concluding, if you look at African Christianity itself and you put the African Christianity as a whole framework of understanding all different Christianities, the way African initiated churches interact with the Bible is completely different from what the classical Pentecostals would do, different from what the neo or new Pentecostals would do with the Bible, different from Protestant and different from the Roman Catholic, who have become much more encapsulated in understanding that the AIC almost the foundational in terms of understanding how this relationship between culture and Bible has moved, which will become very different from the new Pentecostals in terms of the way they will understand it from a very much prosperity gospel perspective. But even that, I'll conclude, it doesn't mean that they are completely going off the culture. There's something that you said, which we sometimes miss when we start moving from Europe into other contexts. The very fact that Christianity, one of the benefits that we can learn from European Christianity is the fact that Christianity became a complete culture in this context, to an extent that when missionaries were proclaiming the gospel, they couldn't even distinguish what was Christianity and what was European culture. And I think if Christianity has to become the way of life in these other contexts, it has to become exactly like that, to the extent that people would come to the level where when you say it's Christmas, they don't know that it actually even came from pagan cultures or even Easter, because it has been so Christianized to the extent that people think it's a Christian ritual, when in essence it's not. So I think these dynamics will be very important for us when we are moving into this.
Yeah, I think the point is very good and clear, Dr. Chama. You made the diversity within that kind of in the same context, and when you engage, you must go with the open mind. That's very good. I think Kerma, would you like to respond to what Doctor is saying, Chama and Shakespeare?
Yeah, let me try a little bit. I totally agree with the Shakespeare's assertion that the attitude towards the Bible might change as the time change. In fact, that is one of the main reasons why we needed to undertake this research, because we need to understand the impact and the effect of those changes. And we are generally already aware that change happens because of the time and because of technology, because of the globalization, because of the ease of sharing information and stories across the globe. But then we needed to kind of put our finger on what change those time and other kind of changes would bring to people's perception of the Bible. And I only might add something on that. On Dr. Scounda's question, I totally see a logic behind your argument. It is a very valid point that you have been raising, because there is definite complexity to what we are doing, and we cannot take our view or even this clustering for granted. That is part of the reason that we have to invite you, in fact. But then we need to capture some sort of meta picture by which we have to work through. If we are taken aback by the complexity that we see in our cultures, then it would be very difficult to start our scholarship somewhere. But in order to start somewhere, we wanted to approach both ways. One is in order to capture the complexities that you eloquently explained, we are hiring another institution to do some detailed studies. But in the meantime, as theologians, to operate in this landscape, we need to capture some sort of meta picture, some sort of bigger pictures or stories. And that is the reason why we wanted you to kind of to get involved, to bring and to test those assumptions. There is nothing dogmatic about what we do. It's just a starting point for more conversation to explore more. And thank you for doing that.
That is helpful, Dr. Kerma. And I think it's the point. It's to provoke. You need a meta statement. And you can come exactly in your research just opposite to what he says from within your context. That is, I think as long as the evidence provided and as long as a case is made, and I think this meta statements, missiological statements can be challenged and can be even you may come up with the complexity within your context, so the kind of different missiological or attitudinal assumptions there are there. So that's possible. Okay, there are questions. I'm going to ask people to be a little brief in both answering as well as in terms of asking questions. So Renee from Colombia, would you like to ask? Renee, sorry, Renee.
Yes, this is very fascinating. Amazing, the thinking behind it. I was wondering with your, since I'm, within the Latin American context, it seemed to me the information is quite old, because I feel like it's talking more about the liberation theology time, and now it's a very different time in Latin America. So I just didn't know. from the little bit I know, it seemed the other context seemed much more in tune of the pulse from from a distance I know. But as far as the one I know the most would be United States and Latin America. You said there's a connection, but once you showed the details, I didn't see that connection. So I don't know if there's just not information available about what's more going on since the huge, liberation theology made such an impact around the world, and we still read about. But what's the moment now? I just wondered about that.
Good question.
Thank you for that question. It is a good observation. Yeah, it might be all because I'm not a specialist in Latin American Christianity, but the link between the United States and the American is the American evangelicalism sometimes have influence on the African and Latin American evangelicalism. For example, in my observation, the Christian sensitivity about so-called culture war, that is quite something in America, and I have seen the same kind of ethos in my Latin American engagement. I might be totally wrong, but also the contemporary churches seem to take the American Christian TV evangelists as models, or they mimic that way they do. That is also visible in Africa, but as I said again, my knowledge is very small, so I'm very, very open to be challenged on that.
Right, I think Bishop Kirti, please. We can't hear you. Bishop Kirti, are you there? We will. Okay. Bishop, we could see you in doc, can't hear you. Your contribution, you have written a lot on this contextualization of not only the Bible, but a lot of books also. We'll come back to you a little later, Bishop Kirti. And I think I'll go to Dr. Wilfred from Malaysia. Dr. Wilfred, please.
Thank you very much. I think it's a wonderful initiative, what we are doing here. I'm speaking from the context of Malaysia, Asia, and Islamic context, Islamic majority context. Now, one of the issues, mine is more of a comment rather than a question. One of the key issues that we have here is with the dawn of the Pentecostal movement and neo-Pentecostal movement, as Brother Chama has just mentioned, one of the issues is the Bible a closed canon, or is it constantly being rewritten through modern day prophecy? That's a very engaging question for the Malaysian community. Where do we fit prophecy, the modern day prophecy? Is it part of the Bible and it's being constantly rewritten, or it's something else? And so that's a key issue when we reflect on the attitude towards the scriptures. And then the other issue that's also constantly reflected upon is which version. And today there's so many versions of the scriptures. So which version is authentic? Then how do we say which one is authentic? What criteria do we apply to say, okay, this is a good Bible? And of course, then the third issue that we struggle with is in terms of reflecting on the attitude towards the scriptures is the whole question of contextualization. How do we apply the word in our context? Of course, most of the churches in Malaysia or in Asia were established by European mission, and the churches are sometimes seen as a product of Europe. and also the culture that's reflected within the church is very European. And so with the resurgence of this new understanding and wanting to see the scriptures as an Asian, within the Asian context, how do we go about doing it? So the issue of contextualization and indigenization of the scriptures becomes a key issue within my region here in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Right. We'll take some questions so that we can answer together. James, Professor James.
Okay. Yes, and I'm based in Nairobi. I teach Christian theology there in Nairobi. And for me, not that I want to disagree with my brother Kaunda there, but some of the stuff that Brother Gama mentioned are really spot on. Things have really moved on. Like in Kenya, so many people call themselves Christians, almost more than I think 80% would identify as Christians. And even the big churches that used to be evangelical, I mean, the ones planted by foreign missionaries, there is a big movement now because of the culture of poverty, deprivation. The prosperity doctrine is now prevalent everywhere. Everybody wants to they have their life, socioeconomic life changed. So they have a particular way of also reading the Bible. So that would be interesting to check how far it has gone because I have friends in Zambia, South Africa. I have students from all over that part of Africa who come to our school. And I hear they are saying the same things. Of course, now we even have the title bishop is no longer enough, so people go for apostles, apostle so and so, prophet so and so. They try to look for the best name possible. The only thing I didn't understand, or maybe I disagreed with Brother Gama there, when he said lack of discipline or something. I don't think that can only be applied in sub-Saharan Africa. That will be everywhere. To my knowledge, it will be everywhere among Christian leaders. So I was thinking he's spot on. We lack equipped leaders. Very little, I mean, few leaders have been trained and well trained. So I just wanted to bring some form of commendation to what he did. And also, I think what he was presenting, not the specifics, but the big picture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor James. Garma, you want to say a few words?
Yes, on the question from Dr. Wilfred, I felt those questions are above my pay grade. Like the question of is the Bible closed canon, or it would be updated or filled in or even developed by modern day prophets. That is something that we would like to learn if it is a general perception in your context. It is a challenge and it is a fascinating topic, but we would like to learn how influential that kind of attitude is in your own culture. And the question of which version, I have got a translation specialist only here, and he might be the best person to ask that question. I'm a parochial theologian to answer that kind of question. Yes, we do believe that contextualization is critical, but then before going into embarking on that subject, our first step is getting perception correct and see where we are in terms of perception about the Bible. That is what I can say, unfortunately, about Dr. Wilfred's question. On Dr. James's question, one of the narrative that is running across the African religious and the social landscape is this narrative of prosperity gospel. It always goes from Ethiopia to Kenya to Nigeria to South Africa, and that needs to be studied that needs to be interrogated. It needs to be, it needs to get a proper theological and academic attention because it runs not only across the ecclesiastical constituencies, but also it has a tendency of influencing the whole way of thinking, and it has got a shaping the whole cultural and social psyche as well. When it comes to the question of lack of discipline, it is for me related to this prosperity gospel movement, because despite, for example, in Ethiopian context, one known prophet, he calls himself now a major one, during the emergence of coronavirus, he said, God has put coronavirus in my hand and I have seen it like evaporating and disappearing in a few weeks. But coronavirus did not disappear in a few weeks. It is still ravaging our society despite saying something that is demonstrably false. He has got a still huge audience. Now the question is, where is discipline? Where is the Bible? Where is discipleship? Why are people not asking questions? Why are they not interrogating those pastors and apostles? So that is happening across Africa. That is where I see lack of discipline and discipleship. Not necessarily, well, we have got trained pastors and leaders, but I don't know if we are coping with the development of or with growth of the church when it comes to discipleship and training.
Right. I think that is a good argument that we can keep making continuously. I think it's kind of, we need to be, I think that the kind of point that we need to be a little bit of generalization in a way that would need to be developed on the evidence. That's very good. And I think we need to find the scholars coming up with their own cases made in for or against. And I think that's open. I think Kirti, we will go for Bishop Kirti. Kirti,
hello, now I hope I can hear you.
Yeah, we can.
I hope I can. Yeah, good. Thank you, Joshua. I think not a question, but just a small contribution. I mean, in certain situations, even the culture can enrich.
It's internet issue, I think.
Yeah, your voice gone, Bishop. Come back again. Okay.
Understanding of the Bible. Know that we have understood the biblical concept of share to our culture. I mean, know that things like the gap and know that culture against and that kind of thing. We need to have a positive approach to our culture, and also we need to find where culture can enlighten.
When you come to the important point, the disconnection happens sadly. Okay, we will hear you again. We'll give you another chance. And I'm going to go to Professor Gabriel from Rwanda. Are you still here?
Yes, please.
Please.
Thank you. I'm speaking from Rwanda, and those who know Rwanda will understand where I'm coming, where I'm coming from as I speak. So I was also thinking of how to read the Bible
to understand,
how to read the Bible in a crisis and a post-crisis context. I'll give myself as an example in our context as a society which has experienced a genocide and issues like unity, reconciliation, and so and so. So those are the issues which preoccupy us. So how do we read the Bible in a crisis and the post-crisis context? We could also add also this COVID pandemic. So how do we read the Bible in the context of COVID pandemic? And so, thank you.
Thank you. We couldn't hear the bishop, but I think that's a good question. Germa, I would like to go for it, please.
Oh, that goes, Professor Acha's question goes with what I captured as change and continuity. There could be political upheavals and conflict and global events such as coronavirus and pandemic would happen to explore how those changes, how those events shape our perception of the Bible and how the Bible should be read within those contexts is something that we would like to hear from you. And I can only say thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, next to Professor Theodore from Ethiopia.
Thank you, Joshua, for giving me this opportunity to pose this question. I was wondering how the Bible could be seen in the context of war in Africa. I mean, in some parts of Africa, there are practices of war. And interestingly, I'm not saying positively, we are hearing so many scriptural allusions made in the process of legitimizing war. So what would be the role of the scriptures, or empirically speaking or descriptively speaking, how is the Bible used within the context of war?
Yes, Germa.
Again, Teddy, thank you for that question. And as an Ethiopian myself, we are passing through a difficult time, whereas Christians and theologians see on daily basis parties, warring parties giving theological justification for whatever their agenda with the war is. Well, in a generic sense, I think those intentions need to be unmasked. And then I think when it comes to this project, again, it is about capturing that ethos and why are we witnessing the fact that the Bible is used as a tool to justify the political agenda? What kind of perception is underlying that kind of move and that kind of intention? That is, again, something that we would like to learn from those who are specialists in the area, like Dr. Teddy himself.
Right. I think now Dr. Joshua from India and Dr. Paul, please. Be brief, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Germa, for the presentation. It helps us to think globally with different regions. I think probably more or less it was based on the assumption of national culture by Gerhard Hofstede. But with the postmodernism and the globalization, now culture itself is fluid. So probably we need to rethink on how do we categorize the different regions and nations. That is one observation I would like to make. The second observation from what other speakers have contributed here, the real interest is the contextual reading. So of course the categorization helps us probably to design a quantitative study, how public engages the Bible in different nations or different regions. But with the qualitative research, we should be able to identify the local factors, contextual factors. Like for example, Latin America, it could be poverty. Asia, it could be poverty as well as plurality and diversity. And Islamic countries, it is the Islamic influence. And in China and other places, the communism or the authoritarianism. So like that, if we are able to open up, as you said, scouting, I think with the scouting, we'll be able to explore more contextual factors contributing to reading the Bible and building attitude towards the Bible. That could, we'll be able to design both studies, one at the broader level. The other at the closer level, what's happening on the ground reality. Now, some people, some speakers talk about Pentecostalism, prosperity gospel. These are all contextual factors. So in different regions, different nations, how these contextual factors contribute to the reading. Okay. So we have largely confined ourselves biblical studies with historical critical method. Scholars are separated from the congregations. But now in theology, ordinary theology is a movement emerging in the UK, I suppose. How people articulate their theology. I think we need to adopt that kind of approach to this whole of research. So have a major, universalistic paradigm, but get into the contextual factors locally. Thank you.
Right. I think I will keep asking because the time is running. Paul and then Chitra from India. Dr. Paul.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank you. I think I come from a mainline denomination which believes so much in the Holy Spirit. To me, this is God at work as far as this project is concerned. And I'm praying that it will succeed. Thank you very much. I have only two areas to add. Number one, I want to simply thank my brother Gema for an excellent summary of mapping the global audience as far as the Bible's interaction with the Bible is concerned. It's a great piece of work. I have looked at it from the point that it is a launching pad. To me, what this means is it gives us a bird's eye view, a meta-narrative as he has been using. And from there now we can see the gaps and areas that need clarification, explanation, addition, and areas that need emphasis. And from that point of view, I want to thank you so much. It's a great piece of work. The second point which I want to add is the issue, the Bible and corruption from the latest point of view. I think research has found out from Johnson and Gina that even within the churches, there is corruption. And this is one of the fascinating questions which I've always encountered discussing with members. Where is God as far as when corruption is taking place in our churches, in institutions which are related to Christianity, and there's deep, deep corruption in there. So that's the only area which I think we need also to maybe look into. Otherwise, this is a good project and I'm praying for its success. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Chitra wants to say something. Chitra? Unmute. Chitra, we can't hear you. Can you unmute?
Please unmute your mic.
Okay, I did. Thank you. Having listened to the conversation on culture and how Bible could be read and interpreted, my concern is to see how we bring our identities to reading the Bible. Especially when we talk about the identities, it's about the unique experiences of people, and it is not monolithic. It intersects with various social denominators. And therefore, our identities, multiple identities that overlap with various social and cultural aspects. And now for me, the question is how we develop the methodology of reading the Bible in very unique and a specific context, if we are not seriously taking into account how the lens of power, oppression, power, and marginalization if we are not taking these lenses seriously, how we are looking at the reading of the Bible from a multicultural context with multiple identities?
Thank you. I think that's a good question. And Joyce, we'd like to hear from you, Joyce, as well. Joyce would have a similar. Joyce.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua. Yeah, I'm Joyce, and I'm from Hong Kong, but I was born and grew up in mainland China. That's why I'm speaking from the Chinese context. Dr. Kerma, right? As evaluation of the Chinese context, I think basically he focused on the socio-political realities. Of course, I would say it reflects a part of the Chinese context. But if we could maybe just take a look at the broader picture of the Chinese context, I would see different religions. I mean, the local religions or religions originally from the West or other Eastern countries, and local cultures also play a very important role. And those cultures and religions also should be taken into consideration when it comes to evaluating the Chinese context. So that's why I always, talk about this with my students. When we read the Bible, of course, we read the Bible culturally, and reading in the meantime, we read the Bible or we read the cultures biblically. We will say, okay, this is both ends and mutual ways to approach the Bible and the culture. So because of that, I think maybe when we approach the Chinese context, we might consider maybe a more broad picture to approach this project. Of course, this project is brilliant. I'm very grateful to be a part of this project. Thank you very much. Maybe for further conversations, we can talk about more about some specific issues locally and internationally. Thank you very much again.
Great. I think this is just the beginning of a project. So we are depending on you, and the journey is together. Nothing is fixed. So, when you do the research and bring your own research, that is going to be a global kind of picture. At least to some extent, it will be representative of different contexts and cultures. So we want to provoke you with the missiological assumptions, but I think certainly the contextual variation and the time, the time variation, many things are there. I think we can thank you, Dr. Joyce, for those kind words and good words. Thank you for being with us. And I'd like to hear from Marla from Myanmar, if she is there. I think many of my colleagues wanted to join from Myanmar, but there's a very difficult situation there. But Marla has joined. Marla, here we go. If you can speak to us, please. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Mala, joining from Myanmar. And it's so nice to hear so many questions raised by many professors, especially relating to our present context. Question like, what would be the role of scripture within the context of where? And yeah, many other questions are really interesting. So far, I can mention that's all, and really glad to join this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Germa, I think before I say what we are planning next, I think I'd like to hear from Germa or Olde, please, a few words.
I have to say, I have to stress really our approach to the culture, and there is no intention to vilify or derogate culture. We see culture as something neutral, but something that we need to pay attention. So there are times that culture might stand in opposition to the Bible mission, but there are times that the culture also facilitates our Bible mission. So that is the reason why some of you have been calling repeatedly for contextualization. Contextualization means discerning what aspect of culture we need to work with and what aspect of culture we need to take as a challenge where we can tackle. So there is no intention of justifying culture as a whole or rejecting culture as a whole here. Our aim of culture is that we understand it is fluid, it is always changing, and then we need to really take it seriously. That is our approach. And your presence, the fact that you bring lots of wisdom and wealth of knowledge from different culture is going to be very, very invaluable for this project as a whole. In terms of taking cultural factors in understanding of audience is also something important, and you rightly pointed out, like poverty and wealth, communism, and so on and so forth. And the influence of those elements need to be properly unpacked. And when we do that, I think we will be in a better place. The question by Dr. Paul, he has rightly said we are using this conversation as a launching pad. What I have presented is just a launching pad. It is not something that is fixed and absolutized. It is something that is presented as a starting point into something. But when it comes to the issue of corruption, for example, in Africa or elsewhere, it is something that grows in parallel together with the growth of Christianity in Africa. Christianity is growing, but poverty is also increasing. Now we need to ask the question of why, where is the disconnect? And then that is, I think, for us, very important. And does it have to do with certain perception of the Bible, that we are not internalizing the Bible? Our influence, our conviction within the four walls of the church is not influencing beyond the church. Why? And I think that would be important question to ask. Joyce's comment, I totally take it on board, because she is right that in our characterization of Chinese culture, we took the political attitude quite seriously, and that could be too much. If religiosity and local culture is something that provides us with a different nuance there, we definitely would like to learn about that, and we would recommend that kind of point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's very kind. Oldie.
I would like to thank everyone for their comments and participation, whether it was in the chat or directly, and just highlighting again what Dr. Kerma was saying, that actually we are at the very early stages of formulating this, and what has been presented to you, it is our hypothesis, and we love to hear more from you. And we understand that there are gaps in our understanding. We also understand that there is more depth for each of these regions and more complexity within each of those regions, and we want to understand them better in order to formulate a better hypothesis that can then be validated through different forms of research. So I would welcome more interaction with all of you. I love the passion and the desire and everything that you bring. I think two elements that probably I want to add on top is that as a research, we are wanting to understand not only the attitude of the Christians towards the Bible, because I think a lot of comments that were highlighted, especially about cultural reading of the scripture or contextualized reading of the scripture, always presumes a warm audience, an audience that is attending the church, an audience that is wanting to read the Bible. And that is an important audience that we want to understand better in this research. But in addition to that, I think we also would love to understand, let's say, the colder spectrum of that audience, people who are not interested in the Bible and ask the reason why are they not interested in the Bible, or people who may have misperceptions about the Bible in various particular contexts, and understanding what are the cultural barriers for them to have certain attitudes towards the Bible. And I think we would love to understand the social, political, cultural context of those expressions who may be different from one region to another. And the final point is that we hope that this research will also create an appreciation what each culture or region brings into reading the scripture. So not necessarily simply just understanding what each region has to say, but whether there are insights, wisdoms that one region can learn from the other. And I think that probably is at a second stage or a third stage, perhaps later in the process, when some of the findings of the research will be made visible. And the desire is that the learning from each of those classes, the voices from all those classes, could be a learning touch point for all the others, rather than simply presenting the data in a cold way. But thank you everyone for your participation and wisdom and insight. We greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Thank you, Oldie, and thank you, Germa. I think we actually thought of showing you a model of how this is done in Eastern Europe with Dr. Christian, but I think it's a bit of late for us now. So I think we will do it in the next one. But what are we really planning to do is to follow this up in the new year sometime. And we'll meanwhile send you the details of what is that we could do together. And we'd like to bring that as a global research, particularly if you find a literature in your context that would actually highlight a few books, not more than 3 books or articles that would either support this case or support the missiological assumptions or speak against it. And then actually engage with a kind of test cases or pilot study where you will find interesting outcomes in selective places. We don't, of course, not necessarily go in details now, but we will come back and in the next discussion on how to go about it. And I remember doing the same meeting in WCC Geneva before we edited the book Global Handbook on Theological Education. So and we ended up after 2 years, a good solid book forwarded by Bishop Tutu and other missiologists. So we plan to march towards a similar journey. And after 2 years or less or more, so please keep writing to us. I like to, if you can send me your phone numbers, I can put it in a WhatsApp group that we can continually engage in. I like to give a chance to Christian to say a few words before we leave. Christian, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think like my colleagues have already highlighted, we wanted to hear you. So the point is not for us to speak, but to hear the various voices. We have a number of hypotheses, not totally uninformed, but nonetheless, one of the models I wanted to share with you today, and we unfortunately ran out of time, but we can do it next time, was to see one way of doing a contextual-based research that actually addresses some of the questions that have been raised here, which was, how do you engage contextual theology? One of the comments is, how are the identity shaping Bible reading? How do you deal with issues of power, oppression, marginalization? The reason that research is interesting is because unlike using Germa's models, unlike the archaeological model, it is a very nice scout's view research, which has 2 elements. It has the review of literature, but also interviews. And I think those 2 elements together are really useful together into an informed research that also takes into account what has been done, but also the interviews from people that are actually living on the ground. So in the case of the research I was going to share, it was the Balkans, which some of you know has gone through a number of political changes. There was a war, there was communism, and that all of those contextual elements have shaped the way Christians have responded to those challenges, to the cultural and political challenges, but also to the way they read the Bible. And so it's as I said, it's for next time if we have an opportunity, but I just wanted to express my appreciation and thanks for your time. And I really hope that we can continue and hear from you, and together we can shape this Scouts View research. So thank you all very much for your time.
Right. I think thank you, Dr. Christian, for that kind words. And I think Professor Dion Foster just joined. He has been doing a lot of work on Bible engagement independently, very much in South Africa. And he was actually very keen on this project. So a few words before we finish. Professor Dion Foster.
Hello, colleagues. Firstly, just my apologies for being late. It was our departmental meeting today, and greetings to you from Stellenbosch in Cape Town. And I'm so sorry to join you only at the end, but looking forward to the unfolding of the project. I think, as Dr. Joshua has said, my own personal work has been very much in contextual Bible reading, intercultural contextual Bible reading, and my last book was on how Black and white South African Christians read texts of forgiveness, so a qualitative empirical study. And within the Bayes Nadia Center for Public Theology, we engage in the work of contextual Bible study. So we train base communities or grassroots communities in contextual Bible reading. So we've developed some methods and materials and processes and published quite a lot on this. So really looking forward to what lies ahead. Thanks very much, Dr. Joshua.
Thank you. I think I thank you very much for all of you. You know, you are very busy, and you are actually teaching and publishing in this area, and we are indeed happy that you could come within the short notice. And we praise God for this, and we will continue to send details, and then we will possibly meet in February, first week of February, if that's okay. If that is possible, again, to see how we can progress to the next stage. I'd like to hear anyone who have not spoken. Is it Abibol Senbatu? I don't know. I had somebody from Middle East, and I think we would bring that to close if he or she doesn't want to speak. Abibol.
Yes. Thank you so much. It sounded really wonderful project. I'm looking forward to participate in any way possible. I'm from originally I'm from Ethiopia. Right now I'm located in South Korea. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Very good. Nice to see you,
Yeah.
Abibol. And nice to have you all. And I think we will send you more details. Any more comments from, I think I hear some comments.
Yeah, this is Billy from Zambia. Sorry, I came in late. I had some other commitments, but listening in the last few minutes of this meeting, I think it sounded very good, very interesting, deep thoughts. And I look forward to being part of this project and seeing how we can move together. Thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, I think let's say, because as a theologian, let's say the grace together, grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forever. Amen. Thank you very much. See you soon. Okay. Have a nice Christmas, and see you in the new year.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joyce.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dr. Joshua.
Bye, Johnson. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was nice.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye now.